All righty, we are live. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Black and Marine Science Week. Thanks so much for just continuing to be with us. I'm Dr. Tiara Moore, founder and CEO of Black and Marine Science. And this is the Building Equity in Marine Science panel. Today's panel will be moderated by Leslie Townsend. So, as a graduate student at the University of Georgia, Department of Marine Sciences, Leslie's research explores the impacts of climate change on oyster aquaculture along the Georgia coast. She received her BS in biology from Spelman College and later her MS in biology from Clark Atlanta University. Her MS thesis research was conducted at the Georgia Institute of Technology through the Ratcliffe Lab. She is passionate about increasing diversity in marine science through her work with Black and Marine Science. And her goal is to blaze a trail for young Black marine scientists following her path. In her spare time, she enjoys swimming, scuba, and really anything involved with water, traveling, and trying new foods. Always remember, when faced with adversity, just keep swimming. Dory from Finding Nemo. All right, Leslie, I'll pass it to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Moore. Welcome to Black and Marine Science Week 2. I'm Leslie Townsend, and today's panel discussion is going to be all about the efforts of various marine science organizations, who I like to call our sister organizations, to increase inclusion in science. So we have an awesome group of panelists lined up for you today, and I'm so excited to introduce them. So up first, we have Imani Black. Imani is an African-American oyster farmer building a career in the rapidly growing aquaculture industry. Through her love for her career, Imani founded Minorities and Aquaculture, a nonprofit organization that strives to educate, empower, and support women of color in the aquaculture industry. In addition to developing her nonprofit, Imani is pursuing a master's degree at the University of Maryland's Center for Environmental Science, researching the historical minority engagement in commercial fisheries in the Chesapeake Bay. Up next, we have Chrissy Hernandez. Chrissy Hernandez is the president of the Society for Women in Marine Science, SWIMS. Her PhD thesis work was focused on the distribution, growth, and transport of larval fishes, particularly tuna. She is currently a postdoc at Cornell University after completing her PhD at the MIT Hui Joint Program in Oceanography, developing skills in mathematical ecology. Next up, we have Gisele Hall. Gisele has worked in the Caribbean for 6 years, being a core member of teams managing terrestrial and marine coastal conservation projects with the cross-cutting themes of protection and rehabilitation of biodiversity, climate change, and vulnerability assessments, ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, or ECO-DRR, planning initiatives, conservation financing, sustainable alternative livelihoods, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and marine spatial planning. And last, we have Jasmine. Jasmine Graham is a marine ecologist whose research focuses on the conservation of sharks and rays. She is a co-founder and CEO of Minorities in Shark Science, an organization dedicated to supporting women of color interested in shark science and conservation. She is a science communicator, conservationist, and environmental justice advocate who has a passion for making the field of marine conservation more inclusive. All right, let's get started with some questions. I've got a few questions here, but I hope I get more from the audience. So the first question is kind of what this panel is based on. This panel is called Building Equity in Marine Science. So I want to know from each of you, and let's start with Gisele. How do you build equity in marine science?
That is a wonderful question. And if I had like a straight silver bullet shot to answer that, I would. But it takes a lot, right? You have to like establish the enabling conditions to help to build equity in marine science, which means it could go from having conversations with different people. You can form groups like we have. So I'm a director of WIMS, Black Women in Evolution, Ecology, and Marine Science. Similar to other persons here that represent their groups, we've kind of formed a coalition to help to advocate for equity in marine sciences, especially for Black women. We found that, maybe that's a very successful way to go about doing things because there's power in numbers. And so once we all kind of band together, there's some power around that. Looking at strengthening connections as well between groups. So not only within a group, but between groups. And now we have all our different groups here, and there's power with having all our minorities in one space saying the same thing. And just, I guess, positioning ourselves as different minority groups, speaking about the different race issues itself, not only speaking, but actioning different items, so that we can help to build equity, inform persons, but also to kind of tear down a system of, only white men, and kind of putting ourselves out there as professionals in the space. So, yes, my 2 cents, definitely not the whole answer to everything, but a few tips.
That was such a great answer, Gisele. Chrissy, do you mind following after that?
Yeah, so definitely I agree that it's a big ask to build equity in marine science. It's not a simple problem. So at SWIMS, the Society for Women in Marine Science, our perspective has been to create spaces that are woman dominated, where we kind of change the rules, right? So we're setting the norms and the rules and the expectations for what leaders look like, for what successful scientists look like, and banding together in similar ways to what Gisele was talking about by having the numbers and being able to support each other and create those affinity groups. But for us, like, a really important thing is to give people professional development opportunities. So if we're creating spaces where women, or, we're all creating spaces for particular identity groups to rise to be the leaders and to be leading people that are just like us or have a lot in common with us, and that we can, instead of having to assimilate, we're getting to be leaders in the way that makes sense for us, and then building our CVs that way.
Yeah, that's such a great answer. Thank you so much for that, Chrissy. Jasmine, can you go next?
Sure. So definitely agree with everything that's been said thus far. Minorities and Shark Sciences is doing the same kind of things, gathering together, strength in numbers, professional development things. I think another thing that's really important to building equity is that we first have to understand and acknowledge how the inequity was created in the first place and address it at the root. I think a lot of times people want the quick fix or the Band-Aid solution, but it's been a very long time. It's been centuries of the system of oppression being built. And a lot of people put a lot of effort and time and kind of hidden little trip ups and barriers along the way that you might not even consider. And so we have to really go and dig deep and go to the root of the issues and figure out where those barriers are, whether they be financial, whether they be accessibility, whether they be built in the fabric of the cultural norms or acceptability of what's professional and not professional in marine science. And I think we need to not be afraid to start over and say, okay, this was built on something that was not good, and that program needs to be dismantled and reformed. There's a lot of people that will be like, well, let's just keep doing this and change that. But if the root of your program or your institution or your department was built on a foundation of oppression, the structure is always going to be inequitable. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge the root of the issue and not be afraid to tackle it at its source, even if it takes more resources and time. It's worth doing.
Yeah. Wow. You guys are giving me some incredible answers right now. How about you, Imani?
I was about to say, you set me up here because every time I like have a thought, they just like take it right out of my head, which just means that we're all aligned as always. But yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said. I think, you know, specifically for minorities in aquaculture, aquaculture is something that everyone isn't exposed to, but everyone is affected by. And so for me personally, just in, you know, my journey of creating MIA, that's what I was really thinking of like, I've really just recognized that, oh, like not a lot of people know that 50% of our seafood that is coming into the United States is coming from global aquaculture. And anybody who eats seafood, most 9 times out of 10, they've eaten something from aquaculture. So getting that information out there, I think, and exposing people to those different type of environments and fields and just disciplines, you know, creates equity. But then also too, you know, also specifically for like the older kind of wave of aquaculture and commercial fishing, African Americans and minorities were heavily influenced and also heavily, you know, just present in those spaces. And then through time and other social barriers and social injustices, then we were kind of, you know, exited from the new wave of aquaculture. So really, you know, another way to promote equity and to kind of strengthen it is to tell that history, to tell the stories of the people that came before us, so that we can know that this isn't a new space that we're trying to create. We're trying to revisit this space. We're trying to re-enter the space as leaders now, and as people that are, you know, deriving to make change. So yeah, I think, you know, just all of those things combined with everything else that everyone said, just is how we can move forward in that.
Yeah, you guys are really hitting the nail on the head with that. I know, so basically, you guys really touched on professional development. You touched on kind of, so one of the things in that professional development is kind of workshops, mentorship, internships. And a lot of the times these internships are extremely inequitable because they are unpaid. And one thing that I'm starting to see from everybody here's work is that we are really making noise around these unpaid internships and how inequitable they are. So we're seeing some major changes in these other organizations, these larger organizations that are having these internships. They're actually starting to put money towards them. So that's really awesome. And we should take a step back really quickly. And I would like each of you guys to tell us a little bit about your organization. Chrissy, did you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So the Society for Women in Marine Science started in 2014 and initially was just meetings. So we would have full day symposiums. And then after a few years, and those were based at WHOI, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, or MIT.
Okay.
And after a couple of years, other folks that had attended from other institutions said that they wanted to bring that back to their institutions. And so we started having some chapters. And then about a year and a half ago, we started very intently on, no longer than that, sorry. Registering as a nonprofit so that we could actually start having more control over our own money, because there's all kinds of other things that come up when you have, you're beholden to academic institutions to support you financially or hold on to your money. So anyway, so we do a variety of activities. We hold symposiums that are regional, and those can be on a range of topics. There's been some on science communication or multiple career paths or just general networking and showcasing the science done by women. We also have a mentorship program, and we also have chapters at universities all around the US and also internationally.
All right. Imani, can you tell me a little bit about minorities in aquaculture?
Yeah, of course. So Minorities in Aquaculture, I started in 2020, officially launched in October of 2020. But I was really driven to the conversation of diversity and inclusion just by what was happening in our country just during the time of 2020, and just being personally affected by it as a person of color. And then that kind of in turn made me look into my own spaces that were influencing me and starting to question myself of like, were they actually really diverse and inclusive? Did I feel safe, et cetera, et cetera. And, when most of those answers came up, no, I was like, well, why is that? I love this industry. I love what I do. But I really haven't ever seen another woman of color. And so when I started asking people about it, they couldn't give me an answer anyway. So I realized that it was my mission to find other women of color that were interested in aquaculture, that wanted to get into aquaculture. Like I was saying before, aquaculture is a huge focal point of our sustainable seafood resource. So just in the human right of food security, I wanted to give and create a space of connection and empowerment and education, providing those career development skills specifically for aquaculture, hands-on skills, boat maintenance, pump maintenance, all of those things that women at times in aquaculture spaces don't get taught a lot. And I wanted to, allow our members to build a space where they can have those paid internships. Our internships start at $17.50 an hour, and I'm not budging on that. I'm not wasting anybody's time. I want people to have successful careers, and I want to be, a kind of a life support to them, and a lifeline to them, just, for the long term of their careers, not just for right now. I'm really starting to change the stage of our minority engagement as far as marine sciences, and not coming from a one-size-fits-all type of program, but a really individualized, personalized, characteristic-wise to that community, so that we can really start moving the needle forward as far as proper minority engagement. So yeah, we're about 1.5 years old, and so we're just rapidly growing, and we're just continuing to just do a bunch of stuff nationwide, and we are fully intended to be a global organization as we keep moving forward.
Wow, that's incredible. Jasmine, can you tell us a little bit about Minorities in Shark Science?
Sure. So we were also founded in 2020, founded in June of 2020. And we do a lot of different things along kind of the whole progression of one's career. So we do things with K through 12, targeting kids and young people, because we know that all of these systemic barriers and things start super young, pretty much as soon as you come out of the womb, unfortunately. And so we really spend a lot of time focusing on getting kids access to science education that's hands-on and exciting, going beyond just reading out of the textbook, introducing them to tools and equipment that scientists use. And we do that both in person and virtually. So we have online curriculum as part of our Guild Guardians program online. We also do Zoom courses for kids where they can meet some MIST members and learn about their research and sharks and their relatives. And then we do in-person things right now, mostly in Florida, but hoping to expand that. We do our summer camp, which we're launching this summer. We have Science by the Sea, which happens monthly here in Manatee County, Florida. And that's an opportunity for us to take kids out to a county park, let them literally get their hands dirty, feet wet, all of that good stuff, and learn about the marine environment and the coastal ecosystem, which, whether they go into marine science or not, it tells them about how we're all connected, how land and sea meet, and the importance of environmental stewardship. And then moving on to, whenever they become adults, we have fellowships where people, women and gender minorities of color that are interested in getting research or field experience or science communication and education experience can complete our fellowships that we have with several partner institutions, which, shameless plug, those applications just opened today. And we offer stipends, we cover travel, housing, all of that good stuff. So there's no cost to the participants, and they get to go to our partner institutions and do internship experiences from anywhere from a month to 3 months. And we have our workshops as well. Applications for that just opened too. And we have 3 days where we go out on research vessel, teach them all about, how to safely be on a boat, tie knots, all of these things. And then also handling sharks, how we collect data, what goes into setting up a field research program, like permits, all of that kind of stuff. And then we have our mentorship program. We have an informal program where we pair up earlier career people with later career people for mentoring support. And then we also have a paid mentorship program called the Rising Tides Mentorship Program, where we actually fund a mentor. We give a mentor stipend and a mentee stipend and provide supply money and travel money and things like that for them to complete a project in shark research and conservation. So we have a lot of things going on. We have, last I checked, 366. I think now it's at 370 members, 34 different countries. About 30% of our members come from outside the United States. And we do all sorts of, sharing job opportunities, just having a place for us to talk and connect. And we have monthly events where we will network or we'll do professional development and all of those kinds of things. So we are doing a lot, and we're trying to make sure that people are supported in their journey all the way from when they come out the womb until they are senior professors or late stage, all of that.
Wow. So, little honesty moment. I really wanted to do one of the Miss workshops last year, but I could not make it work with my field work schedule. So I was really sad that I couldn't even apply, but it's okay. One of these years I'm going to apply and hopefully my application gets approved and I get selected to go hang out with these awesome ladies. Gisele, will you tell us a little bit about Bleams?
Hey, yeah, sure. I'll be really brief. So we started in 2020 as well, like my colleagues. It actually started from Nikki, our founder, sending an email to Coral List. So it's like, hey, Black women scientists want to form a group. And a bunch of people responded. And so that's like how we kind of informally came together and started talking. And late last year into early this year is when we started formalizing Bleams as a nonprofit, and now we're just a nonprofit, and we have our bank account being set up and all of that stuff. So we're kind of at the beginning stages, but throughout the whole process, we've been offering different workshops, skills development workshops for different persons. It could be students. We also kind of venture outside of students into general conservation professions as well. So that's where I come in, mainly myself and Carlissa in Bahamas. So yeah, a big part of our thing is around mentorship and training and capacity building, because in Bleams we see a future where every Black woman scientist never doubts her own abilities. She never feels like an imposter when she's going for a new job or a place at a prestigious college. And so that's been our main focal point for the past 2 years, helping to build Black women scientists up and offer them the mentors and the role models that they need to interact with. We have a pretty open forum. We have a bunch of us that are later career professionals, and those early career professionals we start as about first year university, and mentorship services, capacity building right now, and we are also partnering with other entities to carry out different initiatives, along the lines of mentorship again and capacity building. We have a program that's going to come on stream soon where we provide grants to some students or any needy person really to just do whatever you need. So do you need some extra money to be able to make ends meet every month because your grad student stipend doesn't cover your expenses? Here we are to help you out, So we are there to just provide those enabling conditions for Black women scientists to thrive in general.
That hits close to home, that whole grad student stipend thing. So I'm also a grad student myself, and obviously I am part of Black and Marine Science leadership team. So a little bit about Black and Marine Sciences, we have a vision and mission to amplify Black voices in marine science. And we do this through a few programs. So we've got our BIMS TV, which is our live streaming through YouTube. So we are on BIMS TV right now. We've got BIMS Bites and BIMS Bites Kids. So for BIMS Bites, we have a 5-minute bite of marine science. So this is for our marine scientists to practice their science communication. And this is for our audience members to enjoy seeing someone who looks like them on their screen. Because it's so important. And one of the things that I've seen throughout the programs that we've had this week is the introduction to people that look like you, leading you into this field. Another one of the things we do is BIMS Dives. BIMS Dives is an hour-long discussion with an expert in marine science on one of the hot topics today. So we've had some really, really awesome people there. One of my favorites, I don't know if I should say this, but is Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. And that was such a dynamic, oh my goodness, it was such a dynamic talk with her about ocean justice. And I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, it is up on our YouTube. Make sure you go stream it. It's about an hour long and it is so worth it with everything that's going on with the Blue New Deal and just our infrastructure plan and stuff like that. You guys should really check it out. So we also were just awarded an NSF grant, which is really awesome. And it's about linking the blue and green economy to these frontline communities. So it's all in line with what we're doing and everything like that. So very similar to professional development, just like you guys. So yeah, I believe we have hold on. For the audience, make sure you guys are tweeting some hot takes and using the hashtag Real Talk Wednesday. I forgot to say that earlier. But we have a question. How do you differentiate between marine biology spaces that try to tokenize you or Black folks in general from spaces that are genuine in being inclusive and accessible to Black people? Imani, how about you take that one first?
Was it because I was shaking my head like that? Yeah, I mean, for me, it's still work in progress. I think that, for all of us, we want genuine spaces. Like, we're doing this like in a very genuine and intentional way. And I think that, especially in the beginning of all of our starts, there was like this big push for diversity and inclusion, and a lot of people were trying to jump on the bandwagons. All of our wagons were hot. Everybody was trying to, try to get affiliated with us and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I just think that you really have to look at what people's values are, what their like organization's values are, but not just for like right now when they're like reaching out to you to get that meeting or whatever, but like before then. What have they done in the past? Like, what are their foundations of their organization? Like, what do they stand for and things like that? That's just how I personally differentiate. But I think that, in general, like, you can really tell a lot about how people are trying to build moving forward. So I think that just kind of looking at that as like a overall picture instead of like just a snapshot of what they changed their website to or whatever. Currently, I think is super important to just like deep dive into people that you're either going to work with, collaborate with, or anything like that.
Yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention was Black and Marine Science actually got our start in 2020 as well. And we were kind of born out of the Black Birders Week after what happened to Christian Cooper in Central Park. And so very similar to you guys, we have to really try to align our vision or try to make sure that our vision is aligned with the companies that and partnerships that we are trying to create so that we don't feel tokenized, because you don't just want to get that email at the very last second asking if they can throw you on a grant to kind of check that diversity box. So Jasmine, can you also answer that question? How do you differentiate between marine biology spaces that try to tokenize you or Black folks in general from spaces that are genuine and being inclusive and accessible to Black folks?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it takes time. There's a lot of quality control, I'll say, that goes into it. We never agree to do partnerships or anything like on face value. It's a long conversation. So typically we'll sit down with people and be like, all right, so what's happening in your institution right now? What have you done so far? What's happening? And if their answer is, oh, we've done nothing, I'm like, okay, well, you start and then we'll meet you in the middle, but we're not about to like drag you up somewhere. So we usually start with that of like, what have you been working on so far? What's going on? And then we build out the like programmer collaboration together. So we never do anything that's like, oh, and then we're gonna grab Miss, and Miss is gonna like come up in here. It's a thing that's developed with the people together, where we say, okay, so what are you gonna put into this? Okay, if you put in that, we'll put in this. What else are you gonna put into this? If you put in that, we'll put in this. And so everything is a whole conversation. There's a whole process to developing things. In terms of like speaking engagements and stuff, we usually look a little bit into, like Imani was saying, looking into what their organization is about, what they stand for, asking our members, because we have a lot of members, and the chances that one of them has interacted with that organization is high. And so if they say, oh no, these people are trash, don't work with them, then we're going to be like, bye. So that's kind of how it goes. And then I'll also say that sometimes it's a balance of how much can we get out of this? How much influence can we have by doing this? Because sometimes people don't know what they're asking for. Sometimes people are like, oh, we want you to come and give a talk. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna come give a talk, and we're gonna talk. And you're gonna sit here and you're gonna listen, and now you're in it. You're in it. You can't back out now. So that's also an opportunity where you can like really get paid to like tell people about themselves, which is sometimes valuable, depending on the energy you have, how much the compensation is and everything. If Miss is getting a lot out of it, you can use a platform that's not necessarily the organization's all the way there, but you can make a big impact, because even if the leadership isn't on board, maybe there are people within the organization that you can really reach. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned to me were like, one of the things you mentioned that really stood out to me were the paid opportunities, and BIMS does something similar. So we actually have like a form that people can fill out, and it's on our website. Because a lot of the times we just get so many job applications and we just get bombarded with them. We get them on Twitter, we get them on Instagram. They just come from everywhere. So, one of our team leaders created this form for people to fill out. And one of the big things on it, we talk about wage inequality, which is so big. Being women, we experience wage inequality. Being people of color, we experience wage inequality. So we have this awesome form, and that form, through that form, she kind of curates the information from it and puts it into a Padlet that is dispersed to our members, and our members are able to actually make informed decisions on whether or not they should take the time to fill out a job application or a fellowship application. So I think that's like a huge thing there too. Gisele, do you mind answering the original question? I can read it again.
I have it pulled out.
Oh, you have it. Awesome.
Yeah. It's as everyone said, it's a work in progress, right? You have to really check out an organization and what they're doing, and not just kind of reading, what they put on the website, because a lot of organizations have been quite reactionary to the stuff that happened in the United States last year. And so, these kind of take that with a grain of salt, and with that, then you kind of have a conversation. So I would say, when I try to differentiate spaces, and when we try to differentiate like who we want to work with, we go out of our way to have a conversation, just like Jasmine said, just like Imani said, with the organizations and see where their heads are at. And if we're not doing anything and it feels all surface, then we're going to be like, ta-ta, not for us. But yeah, if they have some skin in the game, and we propose that they have skin in the game, because you can't, you know, sometimes you just don't know what to do, right? And you're not there as a coach to tell them what to do, but you can make suggestions, say, hey, here's a way to have some skin in the game. Do you want to have skin in the game? Are you making some moves? And if you are, then we'll talk to you soon enough when you streamline the moves that you're making, right? So yeah, and it's important while kind of going through that process to not put yourself in the position of advisor, because you're not here to tell other folks or other organizations what to do. You're not there as a diversity consultant. You are there as a scientist, right? And that's the key thing. And I think we have an important, just to kind of, we're not really off topic, but just to kind of push this, that as scientists, we don't necessarily have diversity training, but because we are the minorities and we are the diversity set, everybody kind of like looks to us for everything. It's just important to ensure that the work that you're doing includes diversity, not just on the staff front, but also when you're implementing any sort of project or strategies or activities, that you include the rest of us, right? So that, you know, people help people, we help people. There's power in numbers pushing that again. We have to come together to kind of dismantle this whole system of inequality, right? So, my 2 cents.
You definitely hit the nail on the head there, Gisele. It's definitely a process to make sure everyone's goals aligns and to just make sure everybody has equal footing and, like you said, puts their skin in the game. So there's always something like on the line. Yeah, that's okay. So I have a question. How much exposure to marine science did each one of you have before entering the field? Chrissy, can you start us off?
Sure. So I'm trying to think. I was born in Miami and as a baby loved going to the aquarium. But you know, growing up, I can't say that I like had a ton of exposure to marine science aside from like my dad having photo books from, like, he grew up in the Cuban community in Miami and he did a lot of scuba diving and stuff. And so there was a lot of reverence for that. But then I went to university and I was studying engineering, and I don't know, at some point I just got excited about fish and and applied to, I learned about the research experience for undergraduates program that NSF runs, where you get paid and you have an actual income over the summer. And from that, I just kind of meandered closer and closer to fish stuff. So I don't know, like, I guess I don't feel like I had a real concept that this could be an actual career until I was like doing it.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting path right there. Jasmine, what about
you? Well, I was around the ocean a lot. It's funny, I was actually talking to someone about this. So they're like, you know, oh, so your family spent a lot of time in the ocean. And I'm like, no. My family didn't spend a lot of time in the ocean. They spent a lot of time by the ocean. Big difference. So like I come from a family like where everyone fishes and like we all eat seafood. Seafood is the main part of our diet. Coming from like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is where my dad's family's from. They've been there for like generations, like since slavery. And so that is something that they always like lived beside and got food from, but like that was it. Like no one in my family hardly swims. My dad is the only person that swims. And everyone else is like, we're not going in the water. We're just like, we want to cast out, we want to get dinner, we're going to walk away. And so it was like a weird thing where I was around the water, but wasn't like in the water. And I was one of those weird people that was like, but I want to go in, like what's in there? And like, what are the fish doing when they're not, you know, like getting caught? Like they have whole lives. What's going on there? And my family would be like, I don't know, just eat the fish. And so I like had a lot of questions and stuff like that. So the interest was there. I just didn't know what to do with it really. I was like, I'm just this weird nerd that likes to ask questions about fish that no one knows the answers to. And then I went to a summer camp in high school. I guess my parents got tired of me asking a bunch of questions. They were like, we're going to send you to camp. They said that they were going to talk about marine ocean stuff. So you can go to that camp. And then at that camp, someone told me like, oh, marine biology, that's a job. There are people that study fish and get paid for it. And I was like, bingo, why has no one told me this? And so then I left that and I was in 10th grade. So then I started looking at colleges that offer marine science. And that's kind of how I got in. But when I first did or was exposed to marine science was like 10th grade in that summer camp. And then I didn't really have any more exposure until I got to college. I just like went full in. Well, I didn't go full in. I at first was majored in biology because my mom said, well, I don't know what marine biology is. So major in biology and then you can fall back and be a doctor as a backup plan. And so I majored in biology and then I did 1 year and I was like, this is stupid. I really want to do marine biology and I switched. So that's how I got there.
Oh, okay. Gisele?
Was I always around marine science? No, I originally wanted to be an astronaut, but then I figured out in high school that you needed physics, and I hated physics. So actually, I went to a marine biology summer camp when I was like 14. Actually, I used to be afraid of the sea, and I was afraid of fishes. I thought they would eat me and stuff. And then, but I was always a swimmer. Yeah, dumb kid, right? But I was always a swimmer. I loved pools. And my mom tossed me into a marine biology summer camp when I was 14, and I went snorkeling for the first time in Jamaica in Negril, and I saw the reef and I saw fishes. Mind you, there were tourist fishes, and I was just like, oh my god, look at all the colors, it's so cool. So I want to do it with my life. Bye to the moon. F that. Please pardon my French. And so it's been that ever since. So like from learning to snorkel, I wanted to get like my dive license. So like the minimum viable age I would set to get your dive license like 16. So as soon as I turned 60, like the day after, I took my NAUI exam to be a diver. And I don't know, I've been in the sea ever since. So yeah, I just wanted all of my work to kind of impact the marine environment and stuff. And even though I wouldn't consider myself a pure marine scientist right now, more in general conservation and looking at like sustainable finance policy and enabling conditions needed. Yeah, it's always been marine biology at heart for me.
All right, Imani.
I just want to say that was amazing because I also wanted to be an astronaut. I was full blown. And I want to just like preference my dedication at a very young age because I ate freeze-dried food for a week because I thought that's what astronauts did. I was like, that's what they do. I'm gonna be outside all day. I'm gonna camp outside. I'm gonna have my freeze-dried food. So yeah, I was like that for a little bit. And then I think there was like, like a live stream of, one of the spacecrafts like descending back down to Earth, and it unfortunately didn't make it back down. I think that was like the Challenger. And I saw that and was like, oh, that I didn't actually take into account any of that. So then I got into environmental, like in marine biology. I actually went to my first science camp when I was 7. And it's so funny because I actually that's the same grad school that I go to now. That was my first camp. So it kind of came back full circle. But yeah, probably from the age of 7, I kind of knew that I wanted to do something in the environment. I just didn't know what. I didn't know what you could do. I also had, people around me that were into the environment. I also live on a coastal community. So, seafood and fishing and boating and all that other stuff, like it's a part of my DNA. And we have a lot of traditional waterman heritage, just in our family in general. And so, yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do environmental work. And then I went to college and actually did, marine biology and oceanography. And for the majority of my college career, that was kind of what I did. I studied sea urchin feeding patterns and things like that. And it just didn't really click for me. I loved it. I loved what I was doing. But yeah, but then I got an opportunity to do oyster restoration, and I was hooked ever since then. So that was probably summer before my senior year of college that I kind of knew that I wanted to do something with oysters and oyster restoration. So it wasn't until after college that I kind of was on the track for specifically shellfish aquaculture. So it's always been something that I've kind of in my family been like the black sheep of, like, where is this coming from? Kind of like you, Jasmine, where like your family's like by the sea, not in it. So I was like the crazy one a little bit there for a while. And then, we started doing some genealogy on our family, and then found out that I actually come from a 200-year long, line of watermen all along the eastern shore of Maryland. And so I kind of was bringing our whole family back actually after it skipped a bunch of generations there. So that was pretty cool.
Wow. These stories are just really awesome. I don't know. I think my upbringing was a little different. Like, I was exposed to marine science really early on. I used to go to the Maritime Center with my mom, and my dad was a huge swimmer. So I ended up being a competitive swimmer all throughout elementary, middle, and high school. And I only stopped when I got to college because the school that I chose did not have a competitive swim team. So, and I actually took my first marine biology class in high school. So that's kind of where it peaked for me. But similar to what Jasmine said, I was just like, oh, I'm just going to be a doctor because, that was the safe thing to do. And it wasn't until my first senior year of college, yes, there were 2 of them, that I decided I no longer wanted to be a doctor. And that's how there ended up being 2 senior years. And it was also chemistry class, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so that's how I ended up in marine science. So we've got some more audience questions. This one is for Chrissy. How do you and SWIMS work to center women of color in their work? And when we know that women of color are impacted by both sexism and racism?
Yeah, so I wanted to thank all of you for your answers about how to tell if you're like, looking at places that might be tokenizing versus truly working on inclusion. And I think like a big part of it, what I'm hearing from your answers and what I feel like I've learned trying to do some of this work is that it's about forming actual genuine relationships with people and listening to people and trying to figure out what can I do to make the space we've worked on building more inclusive and more welcoming to people who haven't felt the desire to come be part of it yet. And so this is a big effort we've been trying to make. And the history of SWIMS is that it started at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and MIT, which are really white institutions. And those are the communities we have largely pulled from. And we're really trying to figure out how to shift that and how to make sure that we are forming chapters that are inclusive. And I don't know if I have a perfect answer for what we're doing. We're revamping policies. We're writing policies that we've written a code of conduct. We're thinking about how do we actually make sure that the infrastructure of SWIMS protects everybody that wants to be part of it. We've had discussions about shifting our mission or shifting our name and making sure that we are more upfront about our push for inclusion and intersectionality, because I can promise you that the people that have been involved at the leadership levels in SWIMS are aware of those issues and care about them a lot and work really hard to learn about that is core to what we want to be doing. But I can't hide the fact that it hasn't translated into an actual shift in our membership yet. And I would love to have open conversations with anybody who's had an experience of not feeling welcome to actually help me think about what are the structural changes that need to happen. And we have had specific instances with chapters. And so we have rewritten some of our guidance for chapters to make it really clear that if there's already a minority focused group at your institution, we don't encourage you to start a swims chapter that would pull focus from a different group that already exists. And that if people want to get involved in something like swims, but there's already a different group that has a different name and maybe has a focus on people of color, you should just join that group and put your efforts towards inclusion in the groups that are already there. And so we've been trying to, yeah, I think I'm going to stop there, but it's a really hard problem. And I don't know what to say besides I care a lot about improving it.
Imani, Jasmine, or Gisele, do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Please repeat the question.
So the original question was, how does SWIMS work to center women of color in their work when we know that women of color are impacted by sexism and racism? So Chrissy just kind of gave us an all around a good answer on how SWIMS is working towards doing this. And I was just wondering if you guys, I mean, it's Real Talk Wednesday, so let's get real. Do you guys have any thoughts about, you know, the answer she gave or how you think that SWIMS can do better? Because she did ask if we have any advice to give, just, you know.
I thought that, you know, it's needed, to be honest. You know, I think that it's hard, especially, and totally correct me if I'm wrong, if like this is not what you were exuding at all, but that you were trying to find the words to like say what you really were thinking and like really trying to like properly put them together. But I think that you really showed that like you had put a lot of thought into it, that you guys were really trying to like break it down to the studs and like really see what the foundation is and then try to build it up from there wherever you guys are. I think as, you know, a leader of SWIMS, it's really honorable to be honest about what where your organization has been lacking. I think that really a lot of people, as far as like diversity and inclusion, are looking for honesty in the disparities that have been shown. I feel like that's really been left out of the conversation of like, oh, well, that was the past and blah, blah, blah. Look at what we're trying to do today. But it's like, no, like the past stuff actually matters. And the only way we can change it is by being honest about those things and having real conversations about those things. So yeah, I think the fact that you've looked back, that you're trying to break it down to the studs, like you're trying to adjust situations in the best way that you can, it is a good step. And I would say just keep going on with that path. And yeah, just, you know, I think that is kind of like the best way to go, is just to have conversations like this moving forward.
Yeah, I fully agree, Imani. And not only just have conversations like this, but actually have someone dedicated within SWIMS to help you see those blind spots that you may have, right? So, you know, promoting like supportive and like positive messaging about women in color in SWIMS, and like ensuring that that kind of message is integrated throughout all of your plans and stuff. I think having that body there to like specifically help you to see that will really go a long way in terms of integrating women of color.
Yeah, and so I will say that something that's really important is to partner and reach out to people that, like, you have to meet people where they are. I think that a lot of times with groups, they're like, oh, we're like putting it in our little statements, or we're saying this and we're saying that, but we're not getting people coming to us. And people are tired of, you know, trying to come to other people. It's at some point people just like want you to meet them where they are. So whether that means like reaching out to HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions and tribal colleges and being like, we want to make a chapter there, and we want to highlight you, and also looking at your leadership team. This is something that I tell like people, you know, if you're looking at all the people making the decisions and they all look the same, that's problem number one. And then I'd also say that like this is a really like complex issue that carries a lot of like I'm going to use the word trauma for lack of a better word, like white feminism is a big thing. And there's a lot of hurt that's been done there. And I think acknowledging that and addressing that is super important. And, you know, coming on and saying like, oh yeah, we have this is a problem. This is a blind spot that we have. It's like definitely the first step in that. And I think that it's really important to like lean into uncomfortability and being like, oh, I'm feeling like bad about what's happening. And there's a reason why you feel bad about what's happening, and like digging deep into like really understanding why people are hurt by the lack of intersectionality and all of the history behind that is super important to like understanding how you're going to reach people. It's like, first you have to understand why they've been hurt in the first place. And I will leave it at that.
Yeah, you guys made some really, really extremely good points. And I know we had a few more questions from the audience. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time to answer them. Maybe there's a way that we can send out these questions to you guys, and you guys can maybe craft some answers, and we can put them somewhere for people to, or put them in the YouTube, the info box for people to check out. That would be really awesome. One of the things, if you guys could give me one line each, do you have any tips or advice for incoming students? And be real, be raw. We want it all. So, Jasmine, you want to get us started?
Tips or advice? I will say, know your value, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, and value not even just monetary, but like, we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and a lot of times it's aimed at like, oh, we're being nice by letting the diversity of people in the group, and no, I am improving you. Let's get that straight. Like, you're better because of diversity, not the other way around. So if anyone tries to give you some baloney about like, you're lucky to be here, blah, 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 that's garbage. They're lucky to have you.
Yeah, I've got some finger snaps on that one. Imani?
Yeah, I would say sort of similar, along the same lines. Don't let anybody dictate what you do with your own future. I, you know, haven't always been encouraged in my journey of what I'm doing now. And if it wasn't for my passion and really being like headstrong with what I wanted to do, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have probably been another statistic. So, you know, find out what your true passion is. And once you find that, once you feel that spark, and you'll know like when you're super passionate about something, I'm sure everybody on here can attest of when you really feel like something is like embodying you, and then never let that dream go. Just keep building on it and keep building on it, no matter, you know, what anybody says about what you can and cannot do. Like, it's your dream, and see it all the way through if that's what you want to do.
Gisele?
Well, I was gonna say something similar in terms of be unapologetically Black, but since you guys kind of covered that, my next go-to would be diversify your skill set. So I know you want to go into marine sciences, but you don't necessarily, like, being an academic in marine sciences is not necessarily just the core path. So usually when you're in university, like, that's all you're exposed to. But there's like a huge world out there for us as marine scientists where we can exist and thrive, right? It's not necessarily only in academia. You can work for NGO, you can work for government, you can work for your own private company, you can have a consultancy. There's a lot to do. So diversify your skill sets, learn how to manage budgets, learn how to manage projects, learn about finance. It's very important because unfortunately money kind of runs the world. So you can't have people dictate what you do with money. You dictate what you do with money. And the only way you can play in the game is if you know what you're doing, right? And make connections. So diversify that skill set, make those connections, be unapologetically you.
That was powerful. Chrissy?
So I'm going to go a slightly different direction. It's related to what Gisele was just talking about. I always tell people, take one more math or computer science class than you are required to, because I think a lot of people get scared off by those classes, but even if you don't get a really, really good grade in it, the more you like expose yourself to some of those quantitative skills, technical skills, instrumentation, computer coding, that's going to open up so many more options for you. And so I think like push yourself to take that stuff when you still have access to classes.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I know there are a few more questions. So really quickly, Miranda, if you don't mind, will you reach out? If you send me an email at info@bims.org, I can connect you with Gisele and she can answer your question. And Rosie, if you would also send me an email, info@bims.org, and I can get your questions answered for you as well. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any questions about today's panel, please follow everybody on their social media accounts. We've got Imani Black at Imani Black MIA. That's her Twitter account, and at Imani with 2 I's and Black with 3 K's. That's her IG. Then we've got Chrissy Hernandez, and it's at fishy__ Chrissy. That's her IG and Twitter. Then we've got Gisele. We've got her LinkedIn, and that backslash is Gisele-Hall-860BB2AA. And then we've got Jasmine Graham, and it's at Elasmo_gal on Twitter. Make sure to follow Black and Marine Science on Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube. And you can follow Black and Marine Science as well on Facebook. We've got more events this week. Up next, we have BIMS Cares Trap Yoga with my own cousin. Got to put that shameless plug in there, Asada Jones. She's super, super dope. It starts at 6 o'clock. So make sure you tune in. You guys do not want to miss it.
Yes, and you do need to register for Trap Yoga. So we'll put the link in the chat as well. So thank y'all so much for a great panel. I'm coming on at the end to do the free giveaway because everybody loves giveaways. And if you stay anywhere for an hour, you deserve to get something free. So we have a shirt that was donated to us by Dr. Dawn Wright. Dr. Dawn Wright is super awesome. She won this Marine Science Award, and they made a shirt dedicated to her, and they gave her a whole bunch of them that, can be given out. So if you would like this super cool, awesome shirt, the question is, since it's Real Talk Wednesday, based on the 2019 NSF data, how many Black people received a PhD in ocean sciences, ocean and marine sciences? You can't answer the question list. So if you are on the YouTube chat, maybe the panelists in here, because we do have a couple of shirts we can't give away. How many Black people received PhDs in ocean sciences based on the 2019 NSF data? And I'll let y'all know it's a small number. So please put your answers in the YouTube chat, and we will let you know if you are right, and we will give you your shirt. Danielle has it at 4. Jasmine, you got it in here too, so we'll get you one. But yes, Danny, you are correct. It was only 4, y'all. 4 out of, I think it was 400 and some odd folks who got PhDs in marine and ocean sciences. 4 of them was Black. So that's why we have Black and Marine Science, to just switch it up, change the face of who folks see as scientists. All right, we're out. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Tune into BIMS Care. We about to turn up at Trap Yoga, register below. And then after that, Miss Elasmo is going to be hosting Sharks, Crafts, and Wine. So turn up with Trap Yoga.